Good morning. I'm Mike. I had the pleasure for 19 years of leading the sustainability journey at Marks and Spencer. Learned a lot on that journey, grey hair for a reason. Last couple of years been consulting across the economy with blue chips, with the public sector, with platforms for sharing on sustainability and startups too. So lots to share with you, lots of observations. And I just want to spend the next 10, 12 minutes just taking a big helicopter view of where we've got to as a society and an economy on sustainability. Lots of reasons to be really troubled with where we're at right now. I mean, we've had a little over 1 degree C of heating. In some see what's the problem with that? Well, we've just seen record heat, haven't we, in the northwest of the US and in Canada. 117 degrees Fahrenheit, unparalleled temperatures, beating all records by 6, 7, 8 degrees Fahrenheit, just unheard of. We've also had record-breaking floods across Europe as well this week. So all around us, the climate is fueling extreme weather for us. Now, people turn around to me and say, Mike, 1 degree C, the world might warm by 2.74 degrees in the future. Does that really matter? That's the difference in temperature between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock this morning. Well, absolutely it does, because 10,000 years ago, the world was on average about 6 degrees centigrade colder. It was the Ice Age, and where many of us are sat right now, we're under 1,000 meters of ice. That's 6 degrees colder on average. So what does 4 degrees C on average warmer, with 8 billion people on the planet living a sophisticated life in many cases, what does that actually mean? And we have to be incredibly careful now about going over this tipping point and really destabilizing not just the planetary system, but our economy and society too. And it's not just the climate crisis as well. We're losing biodiversity hand over fist. And if I'd had a couple of slides with you to show you today, I'd have shown you a picture of the great Christmas game, Jenga. I don't know if any of you played it, where you pile up the wooden blocks and you take it in turns to pull a wooden block out until the whole edifice falls over. That's biodiversity. That's all the ecosystems, the species, the habitats that underpin our sophisticated modern economy and society. And willy-nilly, we're pulling those blocks out, a population of birds, of bees, of amphibians, of insects out, and nothing seems to change. And suddenly the whole system crashes down. And it's not just biodiversity loss either. It's the circular economy. The world uses 100 billion tons of resources a year to fuel its economy. Less than 7% of that is actually recycled or reused in any meaningful way. 93 billion tons is used in a singular, unsustainable, once-through system that generates waste. So all around us, environmentally and socially, and I don't want to forget the social dimension of this, 750 million people each night are going to bed hungry in a world that wastes 1/3 of all the calories it produces every year. How can that be right? And that's just one social dimension of why the system isn't working. And of course, we've tried to put these things right in the past. Back in 2009, we had a big conference on climate in Copenhagen. It was an abject failure. If it had been a success, we wouldn't be in the dire straits that we are now. 2015, we had a better COP21 Paris Climate Agreement that seemed on the surface to bring a lot of resolution to the fact that we needed to act. Have we acted as a society and economy in the last 6 years? By and large, not. So we start a pivotal decade ahead of us, and we keep saying pivotal decade and then kicking the tin down the street. This really is a pivotal decade. We either bend the arc in terms of biodiversity loss, climate change, impact on society of pollution, or we fail miserably and abjectly as a society. So are there reasons to be positive about the next 10 years? In some senses, not. I want to be very honest about that. We still have populist leaders that don't believe that there's a problem. We still have corporations that really don't give a monkeys about doing anything than extracting today's dollar out of the system, right through to crime. We have big organized crime despoiling the planet. It's in their interest to do it. And of course, the petrodollar system that's trying to cling on to all that it knew in the 20th century. Lots of reasons to be negative. But I want to focus on reasons why we might be a little bit more positive. And I want just to frame that around 3 things for you. Where are citizens? Where's the policy system? Where's business? And let me start with the citizens, the 7.7 billion people on the planet. Now, because of lockdown and the pandemic, and my kids have been doing A-levels and GCSEs, I've had the chance over the winter to read 180 different surveys from around the world as to how people are feeling about sustainability. And the good news is, consistently, in 70% of people in most marketplaces are saying they are somewhat or very concerned about the climate crisis and the wider environmental problems that we have. They don't know what to do about it. They're very concerned about the cost and complexity of change. But rather like Henry Ford said all those years ago, if I'd asked my customers what they wanted, they'd ever asked me for a faster horse. People know that they've got a problem. They know that they want a solution on these issues. They just don't know what it is. It is for politicians and business leaders to step into that vacuum and give people the solutions they want. Great products, great lifestyles, or fundamentally more sustainable today. Now, also, we talk about a new revolution, a new young set of consumers, of voters, of employees coming through who are demanding change. Yes, absolutely, that's the case. It doesn't mean that my generation are not concerned. They are. But we tend to sit on our sofa tutting and saying something needs to be done by somebody else. What this younger generation is much more willing to do is vote differently, invest differently, shop differently, and work for different kinds of businesses. And increasingly, they will dominate the marketplace in the next decade. Brilliant. We need that young leadership going forward. So there's lots of reasons to believe that citizens are sending a signal to government and business about these issues. Our politicians and corporate leaders listening? Again, some and some. Let me just take the example of what's happening on net zero around the world. Japan, China, South Korea, the European Union, the UK, and soon I hope Biden's USA will be committing to be net zero by law by 2050. Now, 2050 quick enough? Debate and discuss. For all the reasons I've just mentioned, we are right up against it. But hey, we're starting to put it into law, which is a big improvement on what we've had in the past. And let me just sort of drill down a little bit on 3 specific examples from the UK about how we're turning that legal mandate into reality. One really positive story, what we've done with the electricity system in the UK. By and large, the UK has led the world in decarbonising and shifting from a coal-based system to an offshore wind, solar and battery storage system. Long way still to go yet, but a really positive story. Now, it's been relatively easy, expensive, but easy because we haven't had to change anybody's fundamental behaviour. We've lived our lives. The electrons have streamed into our homes, lit our homes, powered our devices. Great. That's the good story. A bit more middling is what we're doing with electric vehicles. Again, 35 million light vans or cars in the UK that need to become electric over the next couple of decades. We're going to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. Great. It sends a powerful signal into the marketplace. We've got to help people with that. We've got to make sure that we've got the recharging grid in place so people can recharge their cars, particularly for those that don't have a driveway. And a lot of people are very concerned about this shift. And we've got to reassure them that the change is possible and it's going to be easier for many people than the old day of having to go down the petrol station. But I've got that somewhere in the middle. We're starting to take the action we need to. But we also need to hold our hand up and say we've had abject failure as well as a nation. On the 29 million homes in the UK that by and large are very energy efficient, they're gas-fired central heating right now. We've got to change that system. We've got to make those homes more efficient. We've got to change the central heating systems in them. That's going to be really hard. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be disruptive. It's going to fundamentally challenge people's ways of life. Are we prepared for doing that? Well, we've tried a couple of times through government policy over the last 7 or 8 years and failed. We need to do it better in the future. And that's not sort of throw bricks and blame at people. It is difficult. But it says we've got to have a conversation with 66 million people in Britain, not just about how they drive and heat their homes, but ultimately the diet they eat as well. And again, that will be political, it'll be complex, it'll be emotional. But these are the kind of changes we need. So that's government. I'm starting to see the sort of changes that we need, certainly in the UK, but again, nowhere near the speed that we need. So let me turn to business now. And again, I've been part of this business system for 20 or 30 years, and I've seen its many, many failings, fueling the problems that we've got. And I don't want to sort of rake over those. They're obvious. Virtually every business in the UK and global economy today is unsustainable. Some have put their hands up about that, acknowledged it, and have committed to do something about it. But by and large, the economy we have today is fundamentally unsustainable. But let me turn to reasons why I'm moderately confident that the business is starting to wake up about this. First is the power of partnership. No one business can become net zero or circular or good for nature on its own. You have to work with your most ferocious competitors. In the run-up to COP26 in Glasgow in November, we've got Race to Zero, bringing together the world's biggest industrial sectors to collaborate. 10 of them by COP26 will be out there with 20% of the marketplace committed to become net zero. Brilliant. And the rest of the sectors doing it over the next 1 or 2 years. The British Retail Consortium, the Food and Drink Federation, the National Farmers Union, the Zero Carbon Forum, bringing the hospitality sectors, are all bringing their sectors together to work on net zero. Not just their scope 1 and 2 emissions, their own operations, but these much more complex supply chains and customer use of their products. And it's not just food. I see it around tech zero. I see it today, announcement from lawyers declaring a climate emergency, willing to work together to drive the change we need. I talked about scope 3, these big complex global supply chains that businesses don't own these emissions. Somebody else does, but it's your supply chain and you can activate the change that we need. I see the co-op committing to be carbon neutral food, private label food by 2025. Morrison's committing to work with 3,000 of its farmers in the UK to help them be net zero by 2030. I see something called the SME Climate Hub emerge, helping small businesses get on the net zero journey. I see big businesses like Kellogg's, McDonald's and General Mills committing to be regenerative in terms of how their farming bases operate. I see IKEA committing to work with 1,600 suppliers around the world, Poland, China, and India. Again, predominantly coal-fired or fossil-fueled economies, working with them to drive renewables into their businesses. Brilliant. I see new participants entering the debate about net zero. The NHS, even in the middle of the dreadful pandemic and the crisis that we've had to deal with, recognises it needs to become net zero by 2045. And it's huge supply chains having to do so as well, because their biggest customer, the NHS, demands it as well. And then I see businesses starting to reach out to consumers, to citizens, to help them make the right choice in the marketplace. Ocado surfacing 1,500 B Corp certified businesses on its virtual island up in the cyberspace. Businesses like Allbirds, Upfield that owns the Flora margarine business, Quorn starting to carbon label products. We had an announcement this week about a number of big food retailers and big food brands going to launch a pilot in the autumn on eco-labeling products in the way that they put nutritional labels on products, putting eco-labels on products. Early days, much to be learned, but you only learn that from doing a trial. I see like businesses like Waitrose, Iceland, and the Co-op committing to ban the sale of peat-based compost. Brilliant. Peat is one of the most important carbon stores we've got. Every time we're taken out of the ground to put it onto our gardens, we lose that carbon. It's released. So we need to make big decisions about removing difficult choices from consumers as well. And it's not just consumers, employees too. Count Us In, a new initiative, is launched to bring the employees of big businesses together to commit to doing the right thing, driving their businesses change. On the circular economy, I see businesses like IKEA now running second-hand business models, starting to take back what they once sold, recondition it, resell it. I see businesses like M&S and Waitrose doing trials in terms of refill for dry goods in their stores. I see businesses like Tesco's and Sainsbury's committing to take soft plastics, flexible plastics back that are typically not recycled by the council in the UK, and take them back in their stores so they can recycle them as well. And I see on social sustainability, businesses like Unilever on human rights in the supply chain and Virgin Media using their business model to connect people make a big difference too. So let's take a step back. The world is burning. Let's be really clear about that. We're in a really parlous state. We have to act. But between citizens demanding change, governments starting to respond, businesses starting to respond, I can see a pathway forward. And let me just finish off with the last 30 seconds about my warning to business. 8 years ago, the most valuable company on the planet, bar none, was ExxonMobil. 8 years on, it's not even the top 30 most valuable companies in America. It's heading in the wrong direction. In those same 8 years, Tesla's gone from a valuation of $12 billion to $600 billion. Some speculative froth in there, but it's worth more than all the other car companies on the planet put together because it got the need to disrupt itself. So there I finish. Let's be really clear about the challenge we've got as a society going forward. The world is burning. But let's also look at these positive levers that are emerging for us to pull, if together we really make that happen. Thank you for listening. Good luck with your personal journeys to drive the change we need. Thank you.